All right, so again, we are here as a Count Me In Ballot Bash. I'm really stoked to talk about Proposition 118. And again, this is part 3 of 4. We'll talk about what's to come on part 4. So before we dive deep into Proposition 118, I really want to talk about Count Me In for just a brief moment. Count Me In is a collaborative effort among several different groups that share a set of values for better Colorado. These values are that we believe you, as a community member, play a key role in shaping Colorado policies and investments. We also believe that the best decision makers are informed and educated. Lastly, our informed choices create thriving communities. We started Count Me In to educate and energize Coloradans about state elections because elections are a really important way we make collective choices. I really want to emphasize, though, Count Me In does not advocate for one way or another on an issue, but instead we really leave that up for you to decide and discuss, and we just give you all the facts and figures. So Small Business Majority is part of this incredible steering committee with a lot of different other partners, including Colorado Center on Law and Policy, Colorado Common Cause, Colorado Cross Disability Coalition, Colorado Fiscal Institute, Community Resource Center, Great Ed Colorado, Together We Count, and Rockstart Volunteers. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to our Colorado Director, Hunter Raley, to talk about 118.
Hello, and thank you all for joining us. So on this deep dive, we're going to discuss Proposition 118. So at a high level, you're going to see this on your ballot. It is a fairly long and complicated ballot measure. So we hope this deep dive at least provides some helpful context or some ways to think about this as you're when you start voting in a couple weeks or potentially as soon as this weekend. So at a high level, Proposition 118 establishes a 12-week paid family and medical leave program for eligible employees. The paid leave would be supported by a 50-50 split of employer and employee contributions into a state insurance program. And there's some nuance to that 50-50 split piece, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on. So Lindsay, we can go to the next one. Before we dig into this, I think it's helpful just to provide some context and some background on why you're seeing this on your ballot. At a high level, Proposition 118 is the result of a fairly long and contentious multi-year campaign that began at the state legislature. So this has come up in the past 6 legislative sessions. And for a number of years, I don't think there was a real sense that this was going to move forward, given that there were split chambers with Democrats holding the House of Representatives and Republicans holding the Senate. That changed in the 2018 in the 2018 election cycle, where Democrats took a trifecta. So we Democrats have the governor's office, they have the Senate, they have the House of Representatives. In that context, going into the 2019 session, a more ambitious bill was proposed. This was one of the most lobbied bills that session. And there were a lot of stakeholder conversations, a lot of pieces that needed to be worked through. And ultimately, all the folks at the table decided to compromise and create a bipartisan task force to study the issue. Go ahead. The task force, at a high level, was a pretty rigorous study with a great number of parties that came to the table to work through this issue. So beginning this past summer, 11 meetings were held. 10 of those were full day meetings, and there was a short special meeting. During the course of this, 16 policy levers within the context of this policy were debated and voted on by this task force. 3 expert reports were produced, and there was extensive administrative analysis from CDPHE and CDLE to assess whether and how this program could be administered if it were to be a state-run program. The task force members included advocates from both sides of the political spectrum, business representatives, insurance representatives, organized labor, the ski industry, as well as some others. The final report that was put together included a full actuarial analysis, so that included the low and the high range of the benefit, as well as the administrative components that would go into this, and that was delivered to the state legislature. A majority of the policy components received unanimous support from the task force members, and the actuarial analysis demonstrated high degrees of confidence in the program solvency, and really just whether the collected premiums are going to cover the actual cost of the benefit utilization. And we'll discuss that in greater detail a little bit later on. Go ahead. Going into the 2020 session, this report created a number of different debates, namely beyond the existing concerns and continued concerns coming from many of the chambers of commerce. The governor also had his own perspective on how this policy should be administered and rolled out. And all of these were really taken into consideration and debated extensively up until March. Once COVID rolled around and the legislature halted session for the public health crisis, priorities for lawmakers shifted to address the immediate needs of that public health crisis, and the determination was made not to introduce a bill in part because of those shifting priorities, and to put simply, limited opportunities for the key stakeholders to really engage and work through some of the existing issues they had with the bill. As a result of this, an outside coalition, Colorado Families First, determined that a citizen initiative was the best avenue for pursuing paid family and medical leave. They had pursued the title process prior to COVID hitting, so I don't want folks to be confused that this was a direct result of COVID. The ballot process had already been begun at that point. What the public health crisis and the resulting legislative decisions really did was sort of make their decision for them, or help them determine that this was the right time to pursue this ballot initiative. Go ahead. So before we dive into this, we just want to be really clear. So you are going to be asked to vote on this. It will be on your ballot. A yes vote will authorize the state to begin implementing a paid family and medical leave program. What this will mean, and what that means in this context, is that the state legislature, or excuse me, the state will begin implementing a program that is outlined in your ballot measure. So it's not a simple, it's not simply telling the legislature and administrative agencies to conceptualize and kind of come up with a new program. The specifics of this program are outlined in this ballot measure. Go ahead. So again, paid family and medical leave is a complex policy. As it stands right now, there is no national program for paid family and medical leave. We do have a FMLA, the Family and Medical Leave Act, but that is not a paid benefit, and that only addresses a certain portion of the working population. Proposition 118 creates really kind of does two things, and we're segmenting it this way simply to simplify our analysis and to make it easier for you to understand. So what this does is it creates a new benefit for Colorado workers and an insurance program and administrative structure to pay those claims and administer and assess whether folks' claims qualify. So again, this is a new benefit and also a state insurance program. Go ahead. So beginning to talk about this, we'll start with the benefit. So this requires employers to provide workers with no less than 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave per year. As it stands right now, again, Proponents of this measure are arguing that something like 80% of employees in Colorado do not have access to this benefit through their employers. Opponents of this measure are arguing that this benefit is much more widespread, but through a different set of mechanisms, including PTO, existing employer leave, and the like. In addition to requiring employers to provide no less than 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave per year, for a certain set of employers that vest into this, they will be offered job protection if they were to take this benefit. So individuals, to qualify for this benefit, individuals must earn $2,500 in a calendar year. So that tracks with the unemployment program in Colorado. And workers that have worked 180 days in a calendar year for a single employer are entitled to job protection. So folks that are working temporary jobs or in a workplace setting that does not cover that 180 days per year would still be eligible to receive a benefit from it, but they are not entitled to the job protection. Workers that have a qualifying event and meet the employment criteria will receive wage replacement as a result of utilizing this benefit. So we can go to the next slide. Some of the qualifying events, and this is distinct, I think it's important to distinguish paid family and medical leave from paid sick leave. So with paid sick leave, which was just passed in the 2020 session, this is an accrued benefit and a mandate on employers to provide that benefit and the accrual. And that is really for short-term illnesses. So in the case of COVID, if you are feeling ill, need to get tested, and need some time off, it kind of covers those things. Paid family and medical leave covers while seemingly aligned, covers a different set of events. And to conceptualize this, these events, particularly as they relate to serious illness, these do have to be serious illnesses that would require extended leaves of absences. So not an illness, but certainly a qualifying event is birth of a child. In addition to serious illness, safe leave, which is for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, and military deployment would all be qualifying events under this program. The state paid family and medical leave program requires state insurance. The state insurance program, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and FMLA to run concurrently. There was, and to clarify this a little bit more, one of the concerns that was being worked through at the state capitol was these are two separate programs. FMLA is a federal mandate, and the state paid family and medical leave program is a state mandate. The folks who drafted this ballot language, and again at the state capitol, really one of the areas that needed to be reinforced was the intent that these benefit programs would run concurrently, so that if a person has a qualifying event, they don't just take the state paid family and medical leave portion and then take an additional 12 weeks of work off under FMLA while still maintaining job protection. So I just want that point to be really clear, because that is clearly stated in the ballot language. Go ahead. So to give you a sense of where the premium responsibilities fall, because this is kind of goes part and parcel with qualifying. So employers and employees there's a 50-50 split on who contributes to premiums, but not all employers are required to pay their premium portion. So if you are an employer with less than 10 employees, you do not pay the employer premium portion. Now, that doesn't mean that your employee's premium contribution goes up. It simply means that you do not have to pay your half. The employee will still pay what is their half. So that point should be clear. And again, looking at this, participating self-employed, participating local government employees will also pay the employee premium. Self-employed individuals would need to opt into this program. And likewise, being in sort of an unfunded mandate and getting us into some other areas of Colorado law, the state cannot, or there were some legal issues in the bill drafting that basically amounted to the state cannot require participating or require local governments to participate in this. Another key thing about this is as you'll see at the bottom with those 3 check marks, non-participating local government, non-participating self-employed, and employers with equivalent private plans are not required to pay into this premium program. Go ahead. That kind of gets us into this second bucket. So that was the benefit. So how is this program going to be administered? In theory, premiums will be collected by the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. So CDLE, this will create a new state enterprise that CDLE will administer. So that means they will not just be overseeing the insurance fund, but they will also be making determinations on whether a qualifying event qualifies for paid family and medical leave and the duration of leave. So just because you are required to provide up to 12 weeks of leave to employees doesn't mean if somebody breaks their wrist that they are entitled to the full 12 weeks to deal with that. Another important point of that, premiums cannot be used under a state enterprise. Premiums can't be used for anything else other than the paid family and medical leave program. So this isn't just creating a slush fund of additional revenues that the state can use for other items moving forward. These funds would all be dedicated to this program. Premium collection will not begin until 2023. So thinking about this, you will cast your vote in the 2020 election on this issue. The actual rollout of the program does not begin for another 2 years after that. Go ahead. Premiums for the program will be split 50-50 between employers and employees. So again, businesses with less than 10 employees are not required to pay the employer portion. In this area, I think it deserves a little bit more articulation. So businesses with comparable plans can opt out of the state insurance program. And the businesses that opt out of this, when we say comparable, it means they have to meet the minimum benefit requirements, and that effectively they still have to provide a paid family and medical leave plan that offers wage replacement, and that again runs concurrently with FMLA. The premium is set at 0.9% of workers' weekly wages from the outset. So when we're talking about those premium contributions, it's 0.45% and 0.45% of weekly wages. And they may be adjusted in 2025 to 1.2% of the weekly wage. So we can go to the next one. Next one. Employers are not required to pay wages when the worker is taking leave. So when we're talking about this, if you're an employee, you have a qualifying event and you need to take the time off, your employer is required to provide you with that time off. And if you meet that 180 days of work in a calendar year, they are required to offer you some sort of job protection. What they are not required to do is pay your wages while you are out on leave. That's what the insurance fund is for. Additionally, the wage replacement is tiered. So lower wage workers will receive up to 90% of wages while on leave. And there's a cap on that at up to $1,100 a week, which moving up the income chain, higher wage workers, if somebody is making $300,000 a year, the insurance fund is not going to cover your full salary. That said, many of those workplace settings that do pay at that rate tend to offer this type of benefit. So again, this is providing a minimum level benefit for the folks that do not currently get something from their employer. Go ahead. So, so you don't have to do too much math. This chart is really helpful on just what the basic paid leave premium scenarios look like for calendar year 2023. As you can see, for based on wages, and with 156,000 being the upper end. So if you, going back to that example of an employee who makes $300,000 a year, the upper limit is capped on the premiums that can be collected. So we're not just collecting 0.9, the full 0.9% of somebody who makes that much money. That would mean they were collecting a significant or getting a significant amount more taken away in premiums, and that wouldn't actually meet the benefit wouldn't actually meet their contributions relative to what they have put into that pool. On the lower end side of this, when you look at how much effectively this is going to cost relative to wages for roughly the median income that is, depending on where you buy coffee, either 1 or 2 cups of coffee a week in premiums. So we can go to the next one. So some of the proponent arguments for this are that roughly 4 out of 5 Colorado workers do not have a paid family and medical leave program through their employer. The average person who does not access a paid family and medical leave program, they argue, typically goes back to work within 2 weeks of childbirth. Additionally, they are arguing that the program provides an affordable, competitive benefit to small businesses, and in industries where it's either higher density of female employees or younger employees, in their view, this tends to support worker recruitment and retention. Additionally, 8 other states already have a program. California, Washington, Washington, D.C., would technically not a state, New Jersey, New York, these states already have a paid family and medical leave program. And those programs have, broadly speaking, proven to be at least somewhat successful. With some of the major issues coming out of that is that the wage replacement isn't high enough to incentivize anybody to actually use the benefit. To date, none of those programs have demonstrated financial challenges or issues with the solvency of their insurance program. And the premium has only increased in those states when the benefits are expanded. So California, when they expanded their benefit, the premium went up, but they were increasing wage replacement. Likewise, New Jersey is another example of that. Finally, they argue that the public health crisis has demonstrated the need for a robust social safety net. So while this wouldn't impact the immediate public health crisis and the workers that are currently going through challenges related to COVID, thinking ahead into the future, seriously ill workers should not have financial concerns in addition to their health concerns. Go ahead. So the opponents who have historically argued against this and who are currently arguing against this have argued that this is not the right time to place additional burdens on businesses. So this creates additional costs to employers who are recovering from the pandemic, and that even with CDLE administering the program, there's some additional administrative burden that goes into that. And that's challenging at a time when many of the small businesses across the state are trying to survive. They have also argued and produced a report that argues that the program will go insolvent. And the claims around insolvency amount to, they believe, or they are arguing that there will be a higher utilization rate of this program from the outset than the existing actuarial analysis have compensated for. So there's not enough confidence in the numbers coming from the state task force report, and that this creates some substantial issues where premiums will either have to be increased, or the state will have to, being obligated to fund this, will have to find new ways to pay for it. Additionally, similar but not the same as their first point. They are arguing that this is a new payroll tax. So in addition to the other payroll taxes employers are already paying for their employees, this is another line item that they have to compensate for, and that it does represent a substantial increase in tax obligations in that respect. Finally, they are arguing that government mandates disrupt employer-worker relationships, and that at the core of this, that it's not the role of government to determine which benefits are needed and how they are delivered. So many of one of the key arguments, it continues to be that many employers in the state already offer this, and that for workers that, or for employers that do not offer an explicit paid family and medical leave program, their worker has access to a paid, effectively a paid family and medical leave benefit through other items such as PTO, flex time, or any other type of employer-based benefits that amount to taking time off of work and receiving some form of wage in that respect. We can go to the next one. So taking a look behind the scenes here, just to give you a sense of who is registered in support and who is registered in opposition. So Colorado Families First are the registered supporters. That includes Progress Now Colorado, the Fairness Project, and 1630 Fund. Their campaign finance report shows close to $6 million taken in. And if you want, for either of these campaigns, if you want to take a look at who those contributors are and how much money they have on hand, I would encourage you to look that up on Colorado Tracer. No on 118, Not Now Colorado is registered in opposition to this. This includes Colorado Rising State Action and the Denver Metro Chamber. Their campaign finance, most recent campaign finance report showed 400,000, about 470,000 taken in. And again, on Colorado Tracer, you can take a look at who the major contributors are and how the money has been, or what funds have been spent up to this point. Again, just a reminder, now that we've gone through the policy, a yes vote on this will authorize the state to begin implementing the paid family and medical leave program as I just outlined. A no vote obviously means that the state will not be required to do this, and other avenues will need to be used to either get this program in place, or a different set of decisions will need to be made with respect that if voters reject this at the ballot. And with that, go ahead.
Sorry, Hunter. Yeah, before we go on to the next part of our presentation, I really want to have y'all have the opportunity to ask questions. We already have one question. And the question is, Hunter, for employers with less than 10 employees, the employees still have to pay the premium, correct? Even though the employers don't pay?
Yes. So the less than 10 employers with less than 10 employees, I think it was viewed as a financial burden in some respects on some of the state's micro businesses. So when we're talking less than 10, the majority of Colorado businesses actually fall into that range. So this simply means that the employer does not have to contribute their 0.45% or if premiums increase in 2025, they're 0.6% of the weekly wage. Employees will still be contributing to that insurance fund.
A next question we've gotten many times in previous presentations is, what does it look like for solo entrepreneurs with this policy? I know you went over it, but will you repeat it?
Sure. So if you are a self-employed individual, or perhaps working where you're a 1099 employee, if you would like this benefit, what you have to do is effectively opt in. So you're going to have to, through either your LLC or whatever business license or you're going to have to register with CDLE, and then in the course of paying taxes, demonstrating your wages, and any other line items that you typically pay to the state, you are going to have to include that, again, that 0.45% or that 0.6% potentially in 2025. What this means, however, is obviously in a self-employed setting, you're already offered some sort of job protection. What this simply means is that when you file a claim and CDLE approves that claim, you will receive wage replacement based on how you have filed your wages. So again, I think there's going to have to be some regulatory structure put around this, where as many of these self-employed individuals tend to pay themselves through draws or non-traditional W-2 or wage cycles. But effectively, you will receive some wage replacement based on your annual level of income for the qualifying period that your claim has been accepted for.
Thank you, Hunter. And I just want to say to the audience, keep on asking your questions. This is a very nuanced policy, and if you have any, this is the time to ask. Another question I am going to ask you, Hunter, is will you speak again to the relationship between FMLA and this policy?
Sure. So FMLA and the potential Colorado State paid family and medical leave program are two separate policies, and they where there was conflict is whether these would create two separate legal obligations or potentially areas of fraud or employee abuse. So we've discussed this paid family and medical leave program that is going to be on your ballot, but at a high level, FMLA is a federal requirement that for employers with more than 50 employees, that if their employee has a qualifying event that almost identically matches the events highlighted in this policy, with the exception of safe leave, that employee be allowed to take up to 12 weeks of leave from their place of employment. They are not required to be paid during that time, but what federal law does is offer job protection. So if you work for an employer with more than 50 employees, and you have a serious illness that requires an extended leave of absence from your employment situation, your employer may not be required to pay your wages during that time, but your employer cannot terminate your employment as a result of you taking that leave. So that's the important distinction. Again, where some of these areas are going to have to be further clarified through a regulatory process is so that safe leave issue, that is an area where there is still some questions around how can leave be running concurrently, since safe leave is in fact not a qualifying event under FMLA. The guiding principle here, and it is typically the guiding principle behind most of these processes, is that the intent is that they run concurrently. So there may not be an immediate answer to that, but that is the goal that will be worked towards.
Awesome. Thank you, Hunter. The last question that I would like to ask that we've heard before is adoption or foster parenting considered a qualified leave?
Yes. I would have to look back at the language, but I do believe the ballot language does allow for fostering children as similar to childbirth.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hunter. Again, if you have any questions, Hunter will be still on. We're going to move to the second portion of our presentation, and that's really talking about reliable sources and voting 101. For Count Me In, we've turned to a ton of reliable sources to learn about the issues, and we want to share those. First of all, like I said, Count Me In has a whole coalition of incredible organizations on both sides of the aisle to bring these incredible facts to you. We're very fact-based, and we want to make sure the voter has the facts in their back pocket, I guess you could say. We also turn to the Secretary of State's office, as well as Just Vote Colorado and the Colorado Legislative Council. So be sure to check out those links if you want to learn more information. And although statewide issues, and especially the presidential elections and nationwide issues, have been at the forefront of many voters' minds, I really want to flag the importance of local issues. Local issues, including your city elections, are where you will be most impacted. Those are how your lights are turned on or your community is being educated. So be sure to vote down your ballot, because you might be voting on county clerk, judges, regional transports and city council appointees. You also might be voting on your school board, which really shapes your community, and local taxes, levies, and bonds. So although CalMeIn does not do local level information, please be sure to do your own research or find resources that will help you decide how to vote. And make sure to vote down the ballot. I can't say that enough. So let's talk about some voting. Here's some really incredible dates to know. Tomorrow, like Hunter said, the ballots are being mailed. So if you are an active voter, be sure to look out for your ballot in the next day or two, or the next week or two, not in the next day or two. And on the 19th, so 10 days after your ballots are mailed, the drop boxes start accepting those ballots, and voting and polling centers are open. The 26th is the last day to update your registration for mail-in ballots, and it's the last day to mail your ballot back. So you can still get your mail-in ballot after, but you'll just have to drop it off at a drop box. And last but not least, of course, Election Day is November 3rd. Colorado has some of the most inclusive voting policies, and that includes the fact that you can both register and vote on Election Day. And you just need to go to polling center or turn in your ballot by 7 p.m. So we have, again, some of the most inclusive voting policies in the nation. And be sure you tell your neighbors, your friends, your community that, because that is how we shape our incredible Colorado community. Let's talk a little bit about Voting 101. There's a lot of things going around in Colorado and the nation really about the effects of voting and what's legitimate and what's not. So first, if you are curious about your voting status and where you're registered to vote, be sure to check out the Secretary of State's office. The link is right there. Unfortunately, you can't click on it, but maybe type really fast or just Google Secretary of State. And that's also where you register to vote. And if you're nervous about the USPS, don't worry. In Colorado, you can return your ballot at a nearby drop box or vote in person. There's a list of ballot drop-off locations at the link over there. However, I really want to stress, Colorado is not new to mail-in ballots. We have been doing this for many years, and from other research I've done personally, that it's been a very effective way to get voting to be accessible in our community. So again, if you are nervous about that USPS, there are definitely ways to go about. But if you are voting by mail, I would say vote early. Turn in your ballot as early as you'd like, after the 19th, of course. And going along with the fear of the USPS and kind of that mail-in ballot, if you want to make sure you're getting counted and your vote is getting counted, track it. You can do it via email or text, and you can enroll at colorado.ballottracks.net. And last but not least, if you have a lot more questions about voting in Colorado and what that looks like, there's an incredible CPR article that I plugged right there. You can also just Google CPR, how to vote, mail-in ballot, Colorado. And it'll come up with a lot of different resources that you can use for yourself. And they link in a lot of nonpartisan resources, and that's where I got this information, making sure it still remains nonpartisan. So now what? You learn about Proposition 118 and you want to get involved. Let me tell you, voting and getting involved in your community is voting just sometimes doesn't cut it in our current climate. And so if you want to get involved past voting, get involved with a campaign you care about. Do you care about a candidate, or more importantly, do you care about an issue, including any of the 11 ballot measures we have on this year's ballot? If you do, get in contact with the campaign. This would be an incredible way for you to learn more about what goes into the political process, as well as getting your community involved. Also apply to be part of Colorado's Independent Redistricting Commission, which was from last year's ballot. And bring Count Me into your group, your organization, your neighborhood, your family, your friends, your pet, or really anything. We are here to provide nonpartisan, educational, non-advocacy related information. We're here for you in the community. And this is just one deep dive into Proposition 118. But thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin's plugging in a lot of links. This is just one deep dive into Prop 118, but usually our standard presentation goes over all 11 ballot measures. And we have a lot of time for Q&A like we did today. And so bring this to your organization, bring this to your neighborhood. If you and your girlfriends like to drink wine, or if you and your friends like to hang out on Thursday nights virtually, let us come to you. We're here as a resource, and we'd love to talk more to you about these ballot measures and what the facts are. And reach out. I believe Caitlin emailed you all to get the Zoom links. So if you are interested, email her or elvagoda at smallbusinessmajority.org. Caitlin will put my email into the chat. Thank you, Caitlin. And last but not least, we have a final part of our Ballot Bash series, and this is on voting measures, including Proposition 113 and Amendment 76. This is on October 12th, which is Monday, and again at the same time at 5:30. And look at the Count Me In website below in the events to learn more on how to register, because these voting measures are very complicated issues, and again, something you should educate yourself on. Again, I'm Lindsay Vigoda. I am so happy to have presented and brought you this alongside Count Me In, alongside Caitlin and Hunter. And so thank you very much for joining us, and I'll hand it over to Caitlin.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Hunter. That was really great and really informative. I learned some things too. So thanks for putting that on for us. And I just wanted to thank all of you for joining, and I hope that you got a lot out of this session. And just another plug, like Lindsay said, Count Me In is a resource. We are here, we can do presentations. We have a great ballot guide that we produce with our objective summaries of each ballot measure and some more information. So take a look at that. I plugged it in the chat. It's also all over the website. And you know, right now, if you have any other questions about Count Me In or Proposition 118, feel free to unmute yourself so we can have that conversation. Otherwise, thank you again for joining us. And I hope you all have a good night. And I hope you join us on Monday for the voting measures, because I think that will just be another really informative presentation. Oh, I see a question in the chat from Alex. When will the recordings be up on the website? I'm hoping to get Monday and Tuesday and tonight's up tonight. And I think that they will be under our voter resources tab on the website. And so feel free to look at those recordings, share them. Also, I encourage you all to look at the ballot guide and read through that too. Other questions or thoughts or comments? Again, thank you all for joining.
I can't stress, I'm going to piggyback off of you, Caitlin. The ballot guide is a really incredible resource, so share it wide. Share it to everyone in your organization, everyone in your neighborhood, because it's like the Blue Book, but less wonky and more accessible. So I've sent it to every single one of my friends, so continue doing that.